Hello and welcome, and it's a two-parter American Dad episode, which is rare. I think it's the first one, maybe. It's a decent start, I guess. Daesong Heavy Industries harkens back to early American Dad, with Stan's faith being the centre of the episode. His belief in God has been just a very minor part of him, not like it was in the early days with episodes like Deacon, Stan, Jesus Man, or Dope and Faith. It doesn't waste any time letting us know that this is going to be about faith and God. It starts pretty much straight away in the church. That is after Steve gets thrown out of Sunday school for basically beating down the younger kids in an Easter egg hunt. It's at this point that Steve starts to question Christianity, literally almost immediately. It's a great moment with Steve only taking in a couple of minutes of the service to realise that none of this makes even the slightest bit of sense. During the family breakfast, Stan can't believe that his son doesn't believe in God. More of Stan's sanctimonious side, but then Steve asks, after a rather embarrassing description of the Bible by Stan, which is an off-base version containing Steamboat Willie and Trix the rabbit stealing cereal, whether he's even read the Bible. Which is interesting because it tells you that Stan has just gone off what others have said, his parents or whoever turned it onto him. It's taken on the idea of blind faith to the maximum. Stan decides that to prove Steve wrong, they should read the Bible together, and through a nicely stylised retelling of some of the stories, like Adam and Eve or the Ark, Stan has a crisis of faith. Taking everything he's read as literal, he starts to lose his identity, which unfortunately spells out something this episode does throughout instead of just letting the visual speak for itself. Roger sends him down a dark path, and as ever, in nicely directed montage form and to a Deftones song which works well for the mood and griminess, he tries out all sorts of depravity, but it unfortunately never goes dark enough to match his depression. The story then corners itself, and Francine orders Steve to give his dad his religion back. It's a really weak moment to move forward. Blaming Steve entirely for the situation is kinda poor. Steve sees his dad looking depressed outside, and you know what? It's really sad. That's not something American Dad can often do, or at all, to be honest. The show's version of reality and character action usually result in me not giving a crap about their feelings, but here it works. Steve shows Stan a large ship that was built in Korea, a ship that would prove the Noah's Ark was in some small way possible, which is enough for Stan. It's a horribly jarring moment at first until you realise that it sends Stan in an entirely other direction, believing he's actually Noah. That scrap of possibility of the boat is enough in Stan's weakened state to send him over the other way. Obviously similar to Evan Almighty, except this is actually watchable. They go to Korea where the head of Daesong Heavy Industries, title reference, panders to Stan's Noah delusions and sends him to a Noah-type camp. It's a pretty funny idea, a theme park-like place to get the Noah out of their system, but it's so obvious that Stan won't fall for it that it was only worth it for the weirdness, and even that, it wasn't much. Stan decides that the Noah camp weeded out the fake ones and he's the one true Noah, so he breaks into the ship as he fights his way through the crew to a kid's Bible song, I think. I do know it's the song Ned, Mod, Rod and Todd sing to Homer in Homer the Heretic. The family try and bring him back down to earth, but just end up sticking around with him. It all comes across as an empty and hollow gesture, an attempt that never feels like it would have genuinely worked anyway. It sets up the second half pretty well though, with a lot of American Dad convenience with the ship being full of animals. It's the kind of classic American Dad jump to logic which worked really nicely. And that's that. It's a decent enough episode, it's okay, it's fine. The start is a pretty strong setup with Stan's faith being questioned by himself as well as others, which is something new for him. But the middle is completely forgettable, as are most of the jokes. Another disappointing one. What did you think? Let me know. Until next time.
Wow.